Hello students, how are you all? Today I am going to discuss A Face in the Dark for Standard 9 by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond's students, you are very familiar with this name because this name is one of the most popular names among Indian authors, and Ruskin Bond is an Indian author of British descent. His writings, his amazing and prolific writings are popular with the adults and children of all ages. So today we are going to read this very amazing, interesting, rather I should say thrilling story, A Face in the Dark. Students, the title itself gives you an idea that it has some mysterious inside it, and the two elements, the two words face and dark, are the two important elements in the title which makes the person very curious to or anxious to know about the story. Before I begin this story, students, the story A Face in the Dark is set on a dark windy night when an Anglo-Indian teacher, you will get the protagonist of the story, and the name of that character is Mr. Oliver. Mr. Oliver, an Anglo-Indian teacher. Okay, and now the setting was done in the outskirts of Shimla. Shimla, students, you are very familiar with the name. Now it is the capital city of which state? You can give me the answer, and it's very easy. Yes, correct, Himachal Pradesh. In this story, Ruskin Bond has used the geographical features of Shimla to create a thrilling effect in the day of a teacher, or when the teacher at the school, at the school in Shimla. So let's begin the story, students. Mr. Oliver, an Anglo-Indian teacher, was returning to his school late one night on the outskirts of the hill station of Shimla. From before Kipling's time, name of another very important author, Rudyard Kipling. You are also very familiar with this name. Why this name is also given? Because in Kipling's writings or stories, also you will get the reference of Indian places. He has also used the Indian places in his stories, like Ruskin Bond, because Ruskin Bond has used, in most of the stories of Ruskin Bond, you will see that the stories are set in the hill stations and small towns in the foothills of the Himalayas. And Kipling also had used many times the reference of Indian places in his writing. From before Kipling's time, the school had been run on English public school lines, and the boys, most of them from wealthy Indian families, wore blazers, caps and ties. Life magazine, in a feature on India, had once called it the Eton of the East. Mr. Oliver had been teaching in the school for several years. Now I am going to discuss this paragraph. So late one night means Mr. Oliver was returning to his school late evening. Exact time is not given, just a rough idea of his returning we can just chalk out or point out, that it was dark when Mr. Oliver was returning to his school. Anglo-Indian teacher, student, you should know that Mr. Oliver was an Indian. He settled in India during the British rule. Maybe one of his parents is a British. That is why it is said Anglo-Indian teacher. So, when Mr. Oliver was the teacher, he was working in a boarding school which had been run on English public school lines. Students, I want you to sit with pencil so that whatever important informations I give you, you can write somewhere or at the side or corners of the book or any other rough notebook anywhere. So the English public school lines means The school where Mr. Oliver taught was a public school whose syllabus, manner, curriculum was entirely inspired or based on British education system. Understood, students? Then the boys, most of them from wealthy Indian families. So the students who used to study in that school were belonging, their social status, social economic status or background is given about the students studying there were belonging to wealthy Indian families. So here we can get a contrast to government schools where things are not very good, but this particular school where Mr. Oliver used to teach is inspired from the British education system and the students belong to wealthy families. Now, students, here you will get Life magazine in a feature on India had once called it. It means the school where Mr. Oliver used to teach. The Eton of the East. Now, you should know that why the school is called Eton of the East. You can write down the reference. Eton College was a very prestigious or reputed boarding school for boys in England. Okay, and Mr. Oliver's school was run on English school public lines and the students wore blazers, caps and ties like British students. And students, you should note down here that India is referred by the British and Americans as being in the East. Life magazine was an American magazine. So, they named the school where Mr. Oliver taught as Eton of the East. Understood, students? That is why this school is compared or said to be the Eton of the East. Now, in the second paragraph, students, we will learn about Mr. Oliver's daily routine. The Simla Bazaar with its cinemas and restaurants was about 3 miles from the school, and Mr. Oliver, a bachelor, usually strolled into the town in the evening, returning after dark, when he would take a shortcut through the pine forest. Now, it is a regular habit of Mr. Oliver to move to the Shimla Bazaar and take a round in the evening, every evening, and return to school after dark, taking the shortcut through the pine forest. When there was a strong wind and the pine trees made sad eerie sound that kept most people off to the main road. Now the weather. Now you will find here that Ruskin Bond is now trying to set the mysterious setting of the story with the use of certain elements like strong wind, the pine trees, sad eerie sounds. Eerie means strange sounds, weird sounds, which made most of the people to main road. But Mr. Oliver was not a nervous or imaginative man. Now we are introduced that from this line, Oliver was not a nervous or imaginative man. We understood that Oliver was a brave man. How? Because people in those days avoided the route through the pine forest as there were strong wind, sad eerie sounds which were very frightening, and anyone can get nervous at that situation. But Mr. Oliver was not that sort of person. He was not a nervous or imaginative man. He usually carried a torch and its light moved fitfully down the forest path. Even when he saw anything, without being scared, without being frightened or anxious, he used to get that way every time, or whenever he used to move that area, he never take the main road. He always take the shortcut through the pine trees. Now, he carried a torch and its gleam, brightness. Then you will get one dash. The batteries were running down. Means now the batteries of that torch which Mr. Oliver is carrying, right now its battery is running down. The brightness is not too much. Means the battery is not fresh. moved fitfully down the narrow forest path when its flickering light fell in the figure of a boy. Flickering means shining unsteadily, sometimes bright, sometimes dim or dull, or you can say very weak. So suddenly, when he was crossing that area, that pine forest, he figured out a boy who was sitting alone on a rock. Mr. Oliver stopped. Boys were not supposed to be out after dark. Seeing the boy, Mr. Oliver stopped there and he was thinking that boys were not supposed to be out after dark. Here, boys, he thought the student from his school is sitting there. So it made him he felt little strange or weird that how the boy is outside at this time of darkness, dark time of the night. Now, students, here I would like to mention a word, paranormal figure. Okay, I will discuss it. Now, this was the first paranormal figure with whom Mr. Oliver's first. This was the first paranormal figure with whom Mr. Oliver confronted. I shall discuss the next and I shall give you the meaning of paranormal figures in my next video. Read up to these paragraphs properly. Thank you.